Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here today, and grateful that you and your team are willing to engage, and I appreciate your response to our State Government Committee Chairman to provide that information that will help us to do our jobs here. I want to follow up on the conversation that you were having with regard to constitutional amendments, and the prior administration and the Department of State failed to carry out its legal and constitutional duty to advertise a proposed constitutional amendment. And when I spoke to one of your predecessors about what changes were made to correct what I believe is an egregious error, her response was that there was a new paperwork process in place. Well, I didn't think that was good enough, and proposed legislation that passed the Senate with a 43-6 vote, and it would require a transparency portal to track every step of the constitutional amendment process. Now, I'm grateful when anyone is trying to reduce government spending. It warms my heart beyond measure. It makes my constituents back home very, very happy. But I'm still wondering what changes have been put in place under your leadership to ensure that your agency carries out its legal and constitutional obligation with regard to the constitutional amendment process.
Well, we have, again, thanks to your legislation, not just a tracking mechanism for doing it. We've required training for all of our employees so that they know what's required of all of us to make sure that that incident that you described does not occur again. I've deputized or appointed Deputy Secretary Marks to take the lead on tracking that. We have a dedicated employee whose job it is to track those amendments and make sure that we're complying with the law as passed by the legislature to make sure that does not occur again.
Well, and in all fairness, the measure never made it across never came out of the House, didn't wind up on the governor's desk. So we're still wondering, could this happen again? With the transparency portal, every Pennsylvanian, every victim, every advocate, every legislator, every elected official could see exactly where it is in the process. Are we going to be able to see exactly what's going on under what you are proposed?
If you don't mind, may I ask Deputy Secretary Marks to speak to that further?
Certainly.
Yes, I don't think there's anything about our internal tracking that is confidential, so I'm really happy to share with you the information that we're tracking internally to ensure that a constitutional
Not
amendment,
just me,
even
with
before it's voted on.
With every victim, with every advocate, with every person who has a vested interest in whatever constitutional amendment
Right.
is being proposed.
Yes, certainly we can share that process. We'd have to talk internally about how we publish that information, because we're looking at, part of that process is looking at proposed joint resolutions, some of which may not actually become law. But we're making sure that we do from the very beginning of the process all the way to the end. And the Secretary mentioned that he deputized me, putting me in charge of ensuring that this doesn't happen again. And that's the biggest change with the new process. In addition to training almost 36 of our internal staff members on the process so that everyone knows and understands it, the accountability is resident in the executive office. And that's the biggest change that has occurred recently.
Well, I will look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that whatever process you are putting in place is transparent and accountable to the people.
Just in relation to the first thing you said, I want you to know that having worked for years, not where you are, but in the hardworking people sitting behind you in those chairs, in an oversight capacity at GAO, I really appreciate the importance of oversight and our default posture to provide as much information that we can so that you can conduct your important role within the confines of the law. There's obviously sometimes information that we can't provide, like information being litigated, whether we can provide personally identifiable information or other things like that, or as I mentioned, the driver's license privacy protection laws and things like that. But my default posture is, why can't we possibly provide what limitation is there in place that would prevent us from sharing that information? So I appreciate your kind words about that, Senator.
Well, and I appreciate that as well, because I think when there are more eyes on what's going on, things work better. So thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.